It's the final of the Champions League, 2009. Manchester United stepped onto the pitch in Rome not just as reigning European champions, but as the club that had dominated England for 3 straight seasons. The team had power, rhythm, belief, and above all, Cristiano Ronaldo. Everything pointed towards the beginning of a dynasty. But by the final whistle, all of that had unraveled. Barcelona didn't just win that night. They dismantled the idea that United were untouchable. For the first time in years, Sir Alex Ferguson's side looked ordinary. And that image of Ronaldo walking off the pitch, head down and shoulders heavy, said it all. That wasn't just disappointment after a loss, it was disconnection. The fire that had pushed him to the top of the world was already looking elsewhere. From the club's point of view, the damage went far beyond just that one result. Rome exposed the limits of a squad that had perhaps peaked a year too early. The aura of invincibility was gone, and with it the unspoken hope that Ronaldo might commit to another cycle. That final, often remembered for Messi's header and Xavi's control, marked something deeper. The moment Manchester United lost control of their own narrative. If that night had gone differently, the club's entire next decade might have taken another path. When Ronaldo left, Manchester United didn't just lose a world-class player, they lost the core of an attacking system that had been built around his explosiveness, precision, and unpredictability. But instead of replacing him with someone of similar stature, Sir Alex Ferguson made a choice that surprised many. He gave the iconic number 7 shirt to Michael Owen, a former Liverpool striker whose best years were clearly behind him. For a club with such high standards, it felt like a placeholder rather than a plan. It was a gamble, perhaps driven by the belief that the structure and discipline of United would carry them through no matter the personnel. After all, Ferguson had rebuilt teams before, but this time it was different. The era that had been defined by dominance was suddenly operating without a clear focal point. The goals dried up at crucial moments. The fear factor diminished. And while United still won domestic trophies, the sense of European supremacy faded. That number 7 shirt had once symbolized flair and leadership, from George Best to Cantona, Beckham to Ronaldo, but after 2009, it became a burden. Not a badge of honor, but a reminder of what was lost. Ferguson's decision not to go all in on a true successor may have preserved short-term stability, but it cost the club a long-term icon who could have kept the momentum alive. In hindsight, the number on Owen's back said more than anyone expected. United weren't replacing Ronaldo. They were simply moving on, without a clear idea of what came next. Ronaldo's departure wasn't just a shift on the pitch, it sent shockwaves through the dressing room. Players like Wayne Rooney, Ryan Giggs, and Patrice Evra didn't just lose a teammate, they lost the center of gravity around which United had revolved. Ronaldo's presence, intensity, and relentless ambition had become a standard inside the squad. With him gone, something intangible left as well. Rooney, who had forged a lethal partnership with Ronaldo, was suddenly tasked with carrying the attack alone. He adapted, yes, but at the cost of his own evolution. Instead of becoming an all-time goalscorer with freedom around him, he was repositioned as a deeper playmaker, chasing balance in a team that had lost its main reference point. The dynamic shifted, and not in a good way. Veterans like Giggs and Evra, accustomed to feeding off Ronaldo's tempo and leadership, also felt the void. The atmosphere became quieter, more functional, less inspired. You can train tactics, condition players, and implement systems, but you can't replicate the natural leadership of someone like Ronaldo. Multiple reports from that period suggest that the squad never truly moved past the emotional vacuum left behind. Some players adapted, others drifted. The unity that had defined the 2008 Champions League winners started to fracture, and slowly, the dressing room that had once been a fortress became just another room with memories. The decline didn't start with results. It started in silence, when one player took the fire with him and no one else could bring it back. When a club like Manchester United loses a player of Ronaldo's magnitude, the expectation is simple. You bring in someone who shifts the needle again. But instead of attracting the world's top names, the post-Ronaldo recruitment strategy became oddly conservative. Instead of signing Wesley Sneijder, who had just led Inter to a treble, Or Karim Benzema, one of the most promising strikers in Europe, United went for Antonio Valencia, Michael Owen, and later Ashley Young. Good professionals, no doubt, but not names that moved fear back into defenses. This wasn't just a dip in transfer ambition, it was a cultural misfire. With Ronaldo in the squad, United were a magnet. The club didn't chase players, players chased the club. But once he left, that magnetism weakened. Snyder chose Inter, Benzema chose Madrid. Even Neymar, years later, flirted with United but never came close to signing. The post-2009 era became a period of missed opportunities and diluted identity. There's a reason Ferguson's most dominant squads always had elite flair, someone who could change a match in a flash. Without Ronaldo, that X factor disappeared. The club started to rely more on system than inspiration, on structure rather than chaos. And the cost became evident when it mattered most, on European nights, against teams who had that one man capable of flipping the script. The transfer market is where winning clubs shape their future. After Ronaldo, United didn't just hesitate, they blinked. And in the process, they watched the footballing power shift elsewhere, often to clubs that had once looked up to them. Between 2009 and 2013, Manchester United remained competitive, but there's a strong case that with Ronaldo, they could have been dominant. In 2010, the Premier League title slipped away by a single point. In 2011, they reached another Champions League final, only to fall once again to Barcelona. In both cases, having Ronaldo in his prime could have changed the outcome. His ability to decide tight matches, to produce something from nothing, was exactly what those campaigns lacked at the final hurdle. With him still in the squad, United would have boasted an attacking trio with Rooney and a developing Nani or Valencia on the wings, providing balance and unpredictability. Opponents would have approached Old Trafford with fear rather than belief. And crucially, Ferguson would have had a global star in its prime to build a second wave of European dominance. There's also the impact on club legacy. If Ronaldo had stayed and helped deliver another Champions League or two, Ferguson might have bowed out not just as the greatest manager in British football, but as the architect of a second golden era. It wouldn't be about nostalgia, it would be about a club still operating at the peak of modern football. In this alternate timeline, the narrative isn't about decline post-2013. It's about a dynasty stretching into the 2010s, powered by one decision that never happened: keeping Ronaldo when it mattered most. When Ronaldo left, United didn't just lose goals, they lost their cultural centerpiece. Up until that point, Old Trafford wasn't just a stadium, it was a stage. The club had managed to fuse local identity with global power in a way that felt organic. You had legends from the academy mixing with icons like Ronaldo, and the result was something unique. Manchester United felt like the epicenter of world football. That feeling slowly faded. As new talents emerged elsewhere, in Spain, in Germany, eventually in Paris, United became a destination for rebuilding careers, not defining them. Promising players didn't see Old Trafford as the peak, they saw it as a possibility. That's a fundamental shift in perception. Had Ronaldo stayed, the narrative might have been entirely different. The club's image as a powerhouse that nurtures and elevates greatness would have been reinforced, not eroded. He was the link between the Ferguson era and what could have come next, a transitional figure who bridged generations. Instead, United entered the 2010s with less certainty. Their dominance became historical rather than present, and slowly, the aura of the badge weakened in the eyes of new generations. Ronaldo didn't just symbolize brilliance, he represented a standard. When that standard left, so did the gravitational pull that made United the club others aspired to become. Real Madrid built an empire around Ronaldo. Manchester United, on the other hand, let him go. That decision defined the paths of both clubs for over a decade. While Madrid embraced the Galactical model, building a squad around one megastar and adding world-class talent year after year, United tried to decentralize. No single star, no dominant figure, just the collective. It sounded noble in theory, but in practice, the difference was night and day. Madrid made Ronaldo the axis of their identity. He delivered 4 Champions League titles, smashed records, attracted sponsorships, and lifted the club's global relevance.
United, meanwhile, struggled to reassert themselves as a force in Europe, often outspent, outplayed, and outshined. Had United chosen to build around Ronaldo instead of cashing in, they might have sparked their own anti-galactical revolution, keeping greatness instead of importing it. Imagine a strategy that didn't revolve around reactionary signings, but one that maximized the presence of a generational figure. The brand would have grown organically, the culture would have stayed intact. Selling Ronaldo wasn't just a transfer, it was a message. That United, despite their prestige, could still be a selling club. That when the very best reached a certain level, Old Trafford might not be the final stop. It contradicted everything the club once stood for. Now picture this. It's 2014, Ferguson has retired, but Ronaldo is still in Manchester. The club, instead of scrambling for identity, has a clear structure. And at that crossroads, instead of appointing Moyes or Van Gaal, they go for Jurgen Klopp, the visionary from Dortmund who had just shocked Europe. Ronaldo as the attacking leader, Klopp as the tactical mind, the potential for something historic was right there. With Ronaldo's elite standards and Klopp's high-intensity philosophy, United could have formed a hybrid between individual brilliance and collective chaos. Players like Pogba or Sancho might have joined an already functional system. Youth products would have flourished in a competitive but coherent structure. The club wouldn't just have survived post-Ferguson, it would have evolved. Instead, reality gave us scattergun signings, unstable management, and a revolving door of identities. Meanwhile, Klopp went to Liverpool and built a dynasty of his own. In this alternate timeline, Manchester United becomes the beacon of modern football innovation, led by a generational talent and a progressive coach. The rebuild wouldn't have been painful, it would have been powerful. All because of one decision that never came: to keep Cristiano and build forward instead of looking back. Cristiano Ronaldo's exit in 2009 wasn't just a transfer, it was a turning point. Manchester United had the greatest player in the world, a legendary manager at the helm, and all the ingredients to build a modern dynasty. But they chose short-term cash over long-term legacy, and football history took a different route. Now the question hangs in the air. If United had fought to keep him, backed him, built around him, made him the face of the next era, would we be talking about 10 years of dominance instead of 10 years of decline? Would Ferguson have stayed longer? Would the Premier League title have stayed red instead of turning blue? Would United still be the pinnacle, not a project? Or was this downfall inevitable, a result of ego, timing, and a club that blinked when it mattered most? Do you reckon United lost more than a player that summer, or was the break always going to happen? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you never miss the real stories behind the game.